Welcome to Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly. Season 2, the Strength Series. If you are new to Jane's Place, welcome. If you joined me last season, thank you for continuing the journey with me. For those of you watching this podcast, you see a picture of me from the summer of 1995. I was just promoted to division president at Frito-Lay, the highest ranking woman at Frito, and the first woman in a president role. At 36, I was at the top of my game, and it's pretty evident from the look on my face, the glass of champagne, and the cigar that I thought I was somebody important. And maybe I was. But within 6 months, there would be a reorganization at Frito, and my position would go away. I would move into a role that was clearly a demotion, and within 2 years, I would leave the company. From hero to zero. From my vantage point today, the story of why I got demoted is not very insightful. What is insightful is that I did not have the tools to deal with this failure. I didn't realize that it was just one of many bumps in the road that I would have in both my professional and personal life in the years that have followed. I didn't realize that this was just part of my journey where failure and success are two sides of the same coin. I didn't realize that I would be a better leader and stronger person on the other side of this. Honestly, it hurt like hell and shook my confidence. So in season 2, I talk about passion again, and I ask most of my guests about resiliency and how they manage during tough times. Because it is not if we will have failure, it is just when. And when the win comes, and it will, do we have the tools to learn and grow from it? Thanks for joining me for the Strength Series. And spoiler alert, 30 years later, failure still sucks. On today's episode, I am chatting with my very good friend, past colleague, and one of the best operations executives in the food industry, Phil Mason. One of the most rewarding experiences of my career was being the CEO of Lily Sweets, and Phil joined me on day one of that adventure. His calm, steady nature was such a great counterbalance to my style, and his fast action matched perfectly with my desire to innovate quickly. Phil has always been a man of few, but very important words, and he does not disappoint on this podcast. To learn more about Phil and his favorite comfort food, please go to janesplace.com. So Phil, one of the key tenets of Jane's Place is to talk about what people are passionate about. And the reason why I love to talk about passion is when someone talks about what they get excited about, they really show up in the world in a way that's very positive and inspirational. And I'd like to start with you sharing what you're most passionate about, and then I've got a few other follow-up questions that I'll...
Sure. Well, I think these days, now that I'm somewhat in the twilight of my career, I'm really passionate about being a servant leader and really helping the people that are on my teams and on other teams really grow and become better individuals, managers, and leaders. Because my success these days is really based on how other people do. So I'm really focused on coaching and teaching them how to grow and excel in their own careers. That's my number one goal, is teaching them how to fish and become better leaders themselves.
Was there a time in your career where you sort of felt like you were making a shift from, hey, this is kind of all about me, to I really want to become a servant leader? And do you have, can you remember kind of when it started?
Probably now that I'm 45 years into my career, probably about halfway through when I became a vice president 20 some odd years ago, it became zero about me and became the success of the team and how the product was going to do. Were we going to launch it on time? Were we going to meet the right margin targets? And to do that takes the entire team, even if they don't report to you, from sourcing to quality assurance to the plants. So helping the entire team meet the goals of the organization.
Well, you and I have worked together in the most amazing experience at Lily Sweets, and I saw you in action, obviously, with your team. And now you're working for an even bigger company with even more people. How do you manage all the different requirements that people have to be motivated and to kind of follow you? Because one of the things that I talk a lot about is running a business is easy. The
Right.
people piece is so hard.
It is.
And so maybe just a little bit about how you think about
I
that.
mean, even when the organization gets bigger, at the root of almost everything, it's all about the relationships. And even as the organization gets bigger, making sure that everyone is in sync with the goals of the organization, the relationships that you have with the individual and with the team, and then knowing that the relationship will be different as the group gets bigger, that it becomes more about influencing.
Mhm.
So you are aware that the organization gets bigger, and it's really important that everyone is rowing together and they know what the goals of the organization are.
And how do you stay on top of everybody rowing together? Is it a lot of one-to-one time? Is it more mass communication? And especially because you are dealing, I think, with people that are remote too, not
So
just,
it's a combination of both. It's a combination. There's not one equation. There's a combination of one-on-ones. There's also a combination of picking up the phone when something doesn't sound right, attending team meetings where appropriate, and staying connected to the people. I certainly am a big believer of when there's an issue or problem, is calling an audible and having a quick huddle. If there's an issue with a case fill rate or something in production, is don't wait for the next weekly meeting. Let's get 15 minutes in the conference room and talk about it and come up with the next steps. So we're all aligned, and it's important to do that really quickly before it escalates.
I think I learned that from you when we worked together. We recently introduced a new product and you sent product out to influencers, and a really large influencer tried the product and gave it a 3.5 out of 10. And said what was wrong with the product, and I immediate first of all, it ruined my Sunday when I learned that,
For sure.
but then I got the whole operations team together and basically said, "There's no peanut butter in this product, and the bread is dry, and there's not enough jam.
Right.
We need to fix this right away."
Exactly.
And I think that sense of urgency and, like, b and by getting everybody together to solve the problem, I think really worked well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a firm believer of getting that, knowing that you're not the smartest person in the room and getting the right people together and clearly articulating what the problem statement is and getting the group working together instead of hallway conversation. It does is a world of wonders.
It is amazing how quickly things get blown out of
Okay.
proportion, and
Yeah.
also that everybody has little bits of information
Yeah.
and they kind of get their own truth put together.
Exactly. And I think, the hallway chatter and the noise can take on a life of its own. And that's why getting people together, clearly outlining what happened and why, and formulating the next steps is the best thing to tamp down underneath that chatter.
Well, this is actually a really good segue into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is when things aren't going well. You said earlier you've been in the food industry for 45 years, and I'm sure you've had some amazing times and some not so good times.
Right.
I think for our listeners, if you could talk a little bit about how you cope with situations when they're not going the way that you want, and how do you kind of get to the other side of that?
Nice. Well, I think we are aware that we are going to have speed bumps and things are not going to go well. No matter how much we try to mitigate something from happening in the future, something will happen out of your control. And the first thing to do is transparency and honesty. And you have to ingrain that in your organization and in your own factories and in your contract manufacturers, that please, and because of our relationship and our responsibility, when something happens, we all need to be made aware of it. The right people need to be made aware of it. And then as difficult as it may be, to get the right people in a room together or on a phone and discuss what happened. We don't worry about why it happened. We try to deal with the situation and make sure it doesn't happen again and the situation is controlled. Is the product under control? And if it's not under control, it needs to be under control. We worry about the root cause analysis after the situation is contained. Um, there's an old line in quality assurance when Bob is sitting there and he's been shot, and we arrive to him, and one person says, "Who shot Bob?" And then we say, "We don't worry about who shot him. We need to stop the bleeding." So we
I love that.
so that's the first and foremost thing to do, is stop it from happening and stop production and control the situation, both economically and for the sake of the brand. We want to make sure that we maintain confidence in it.
And what happens when it happens again? So have you ever had that happen where you kind of get everybody together and you're like, okay, this stuff happens,
Right.
got it, but it's not going to happen again. And then it happens
Yeah.
again.
I mean, that's an important coaching time, because obviously the most important thing is to prevent the reoccurrence from happening. Um, in our business and in most businesses, it's all about the people. So, do we not have the right resources? Is it a problem with the manufacturing? Were we not clear, on the first time around? So, I would always say, before we point the finger at other people, it comes back to myself. And where did I mess up? Where did I make a mistake by not clearly articulating? So it's my job to make sure the message is clear and to try to give people the benefit of the doubt when it does happen again. But after a while, it, you can only have so much patience if it happens again.
Right. It's so interesting since I've been doing these podcasts that I end up talking to the right person at exactly the right time for something that I need. And I want to just kind of build on your transparency and dealing head on with difficult situations, because I'm in a current situation where we're not doing what we need to do and trying to create the positive story around it, where in fact I really just need to be more straightforward about what the problem is as opposed to sugarcoat it. And so it's just really helpful for me to hear you talk about that and that transparency and sense of urgency, and just reflecting on, if it's not working, it's not working.
Exactly. And the people, whether they're direct reports or in a matrix organization or a contract manufacturer, they want to hear the truth
Right.
and they want the honesty. And if it's not working, then we owe it to the brand, we owe it to the shareholders and to the board that we need to be truthful and honest, because at the end of the day, it'll improve the margin and improve the quality of the product and improve capacity and case fill rate.
Right. Well, I think it's maybe easier said than done for a lot of people, though.
For me, it sounds easier on the outside, and I struggled with it also.
Well, as long as I've known you, you've always been probably the most cool, calm, and collected person
That's on the surface.
on the surface. Okay. And you were always such a good counterbalance to me, because I'm usually my hair's on fire or something. And I think the two of us worked so well together because of that. So let me just kind of ask you that. How do you, if you're cool, calm, and collected on the outside, how do you kind of manage it when you feel that much turmoil on the inside? Like, do you run? Do you work out?
I mean, a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Um, but as a leader in food manufacturing and quality assurance, you have to present a cool, disciplined approach when things are happening, because you have to be a strong, methodical leader, because things are going to happen.
Right.
You have to make sure you instill confidence in the people under you, and that you need to make sure you're empathetic with the situation and with the lieutenants and the people doing the work. So you have to be cool, calm, and collected with the team, and then privately, it can be very difficult, especially if something is happening again.
Well, you have such a great reputation in the industry as being a mentor and the servant leader. I guess maybe to conclude our conversation, what advice do you have to that up and coming leader and how they get that kind of
calmness, but transparency and fast action. I mean, that's the other thing about you that I've never seen anyone do such a good job is you are the quickest person to make things happen that I've ever seen. So as you kind of think about this combination of mentoring for action, but dealing with difficult situations, what advice do you have?
Yeah, I mean, personally for myself, whenever I had opportunities, even if it wasn't a subject that I was familiar with, I was always the first one to raise my hand. So being open to learning new things was always really important to me. And then having good leaders and associates that I could learn from. To me, we are going to have difficult situations. And one of my guiding principles is seeking to understand. So whether there's a situation, if it's a new launch, if there's an issue with the product or a problem, is trying to understand the entire scope of the situation before we start taking action. So seeking to understand is really a good pillar that has helped me quite a bit.
Well, that reminds me of one of our key principles at Lily's was assume the best.
Exactly.
And I think it is that you're trying to understand where the other person is coming from and assuming that they have good intent too. They're just approaching it different than we are.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time today. Well, this is so exciting to be able to talk to you again about your leadership. In the 3 years that Phil and I worked together, I learned so much about how to develop strong relationships with our co-manufacturing partners. Phil taught me about developing strong bonds through transparency, honesty, and frequent communications. By having strong foundations from the start, you are ready when things don't go the way they are supposed to go. I loved Phil's analogy around who shot Bob. Better to stop the bleeding first and then come back and find out the root cause of what happened. That clear understanding of the order by which things should happen leads me to ask these questions. First, do we take ownership when things don't go our way? Second, do we seek to understand the why behind actions of others? And finally, how do we remain open to continue to learn new things in our journeys to get better at what we do? Now, let me turn the mic over to my dog Earl, who is the sponsor for Season 2 with his Happy Hug Box.
Hey, Earl here, Chief Hugs Officer at Jane's Place. After joining almost every episode, I discovered my passion, and that passion is giving hugs. Hugs, hugs. I also learned something pretty important along the way too. When things feel hard or uncertain, and sometimes even when life is exciting, words aren't always enough. But showing up for someone is. And by adding a hug, you say, I care. So I've started a hugs movement to kick off 2026. I just know the world can be a better place if we are generous with our hugs. But since I can't be everywhere, I've created Earl's Happy Hug Box. It's a special gift box curated by me, and inside there's a comfy, life-size plush that looks just like me. I call him Earl Jr. Plus a few other fun things are included too. Now, if someone came to mind while you were listening or watching today, this might be for them. Or might even be what you could use right now. You can learn more at janesplace.com/Earl. But for now, I'll leave you with one of my Earls of Wisdom. Show up, hug often.
Special thanks to my amazing producer, Aditi Joshi, for her partnership in creating Jane's Place and all her hard work behind the scenes to make Jane's Place so special.
I am also grateful that my Chief Hugs Officer, Sir Earl Grey, has a real voice thanks to my good friend, Jake Dawson. And Jane's Place feels like home with the music from an amazing musician, Tim Cook. Tim gave us permission to use the Subdued song, Them Figs, as our upbeat theme music. Tune into the next episode of Jane's Place, where dreams learn to fly.